3 weeks after Election Day, Georgia counties are still at it, folks. Still counting your votes. The official machine recount of the presidential election kicking off early this morning. President Donald Trump requested a recount after certified results showed him losing the state to President-elect Joe Biden by more than 12,000 votes. Last week, election officials completed a hand tally of the votes that confirmed Biden's lead. The deadline to finish the recount is midnight next Wednesday. Meanwhile, President Trump is now attacking Georgia's recount. He tweeted this tonight, questioning why Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is not allowing them to look at signatures on envelopes for verification. He then claimed that they could find tens of thousands of fraudulent votes. The president provided no proof to back up this claim, and Twitter flagged it for misinformation. By the way, Georgia law requires election workers to check the signatures when they first get an absentee ballot. The state also requires a signature on absentee ballot request forms. President-elect Joe Biden